no one knew her true name. Fewer still knew the face behind the myth. Yet in the clandestine corridors of early 20th century Europe, her codename was whispered like a secret, both alluring and dangerous. Flora. She seemed, to those fortunate or perhaps unfortunate enough to cross her path, a dazzling apparition. A master of languages, possessing the keen intellect of a scholar and the bearing of a noblewoman, Flora was somehow always just beyond the reach of certainty. Some in British intelligence suspected her very existence was a clever fabrication, a fever dream of gossip and speculation. Yet she strode the marbled halls of their headquarters when required, briefed shadowy superiors whose own names were never inked in official ledgers, and accepted assignments that would terrify or break lesser agents. Her reputation ran before her like wildfire, not only for her beauty, which was legendary, but for a cleverness that could transform a hopeless situation into a masterstroke of victory. If a trap closed around her, she simply slipped the snare and remade the game, often flipping the would-be hunter into her own quarry. It was this unique combination, a hypnotic allure, but, above all, a tactical mind without rival, that led British intelligence to assign Flora missions others would not even contemplate. She worked alone, trusting no one, and carried the secrets of a continent in her memory, while her smile unlocked the hearts and safes of diplomats, ministers, hardened officers, and yes, even rival spies. None could resist her. In the gilded drawing rooms of Paris, it was a French official fell so headlong in love with Flora that he offered to leave his family, his post, perhaps his country for her. She refused with a gentle word and an enigmatic smile, collecting not only his affection but, more importantly, his knowledge of the military's private codes. In Rome, the social season in 1914 was shaken by whispers when the head of an Italian ministry abandoned all decorum and trailed after Flora with the helpless fanaticism of a moth circling a candle flame. To those watching, it was a delicious scandal. To Flora, it was an opportunity. Over cordial lunches, slow walks, and intimate confidences, she gleaned secrets of Mediterranean deployments and naval ambitions, details that would color the maps and meeting notes of the British Admiralty for months to come. But behind every legend, there is a pivotal tale, a moment when and reality entwine so tightly, neither can be told without the other. That moment for Flora came in the spring of 1915, as the world's great empires bled in muddy fields and silent alleys, and the fate of nations often hung by the thinnest thread of information. Swiss neutrality made the country a veritable theater for spies. Each grand hotel in Geneva or Zurich was not simply a gathering place for dignitaries and scientists, but a playground of international espionage. German, French, Russian, British, Italian agents, official and unofficial, mingled, masked, parried, and plotted against one another. In such terrain, a new threat appeared, a German agent of such cunning and secrecy that even his countrymen were impressed by his legend. He called himself Professor Amradat, an eminent archaeologist, and carried himself with the chilly arrogance of a man used to command. But to British intelligence, his true role was clearer. He was the spymaster, coordinating Germany's vast network in neutral Switzerland, passing directives and gathering vital information on Allied operations. Amradat was meticulous. He checked into one of Lausanne's finest hotels, secured a private suite, and distributed a story so convincing that even the hotel staff seemed proud of hosting his priceless artifacts. The ruse ran deep. Access to his room was forbidden, and the only key bore special notches known only to him. Behind the velvet curtains and glass cases, it wasn't ancient relics he guarded, but ledgers and codices, names, ciphers, and orders that mapped the German intelligence web from Zurich to Paris. What the Germans never anticipated was Flora. She arrived in Lausanne in the cool dawn, dressed as a countess fallen on genteel poverty. her Dutch passport perfect, her pedigree unassailable, her interest in art and antiquities, of course, entirely genuine. Within 2 days, she had attracted the attention of every patron in the hotel salon, not least Professor Amradat himself. Their first meeting was unplanned, seemingly accidental. Flora, absorbed in a volume of Rilke, Amradat pausing beside her table with a murmured observation about the poet's letters. An exchange, a laugh, and then an invitation. He was, after all, hosting a modest gathering that evening. Flora, with a shy glance, accepted. Even the most disciplined of agents are not immune to fascination. Amradat found himself drawn in by Flora's wit, her easy command of French and Italian, her gentle teasing of his scholarly pretensions. Over days, their encounters multiplied. A moonlit walk along the lake, a visit to a private gallery where she debated Botticelli versus Van Eyck with a confidence that delighted and disarmed. Amradat, ever vigilant, nevertheless felt himself slipping just a little toward trust. One evening, over wine in his guarded suite, Flora staged her gambit. A careless laugh, the gentle placing of her hand on his sleeve, and, as she prepared to leave, a feigned concern. She'd left her silk scarf in the salon. Would he be so kind? Amradat, irritated by the intrusion, yet compelled by courtesy, hesitated, then left, closing the special lock behind him. It took less than a minute. Flora moved to his desk, swifter than any burglar. She'd studied the key's shape for days. A duplicate now hung from her wrist. The artifacts were swiftly set aside, the secret ledgers revealed and bundled into her embroidered purse. Breath caught, ears straining for footsteps. Then the inevitable. The door creaked. Not Amradat, but a thin-faced German secretary, eyes cold and suspicious. Her hand fell to her bag, measured and calm. The hush seemed to stretch, tension snapping like a violin string. Amradat rushed back moments later, seeing the tableau. Flora, poised, the secretary frozen, the desk evidently disturbed. His fury was volcanic. Only her calm voice stemmed his anger. She would, she promised, hand over the names of English operatives in Berlin in exchange for her safety. The allure of such a prize overrode his prudence. He agreed, set pen to paper as she dictated a string of names and supposed ciphers, his mind racing. As dawn broke, he escorted her from the hotel. Sure, he'd secured a coup. Flora departed by the evening train, bound first for Paris, then the Channel, her pulse calm as ever. By the time Amradat's findings had traveled through coded messages to Berlin, and the German High Command had cross-referenced her information, it was too late. What he'd transmitted was a maze of half-truths, clever decoys, and dead ends. Not one real British agent compromised, not one fact verifiable. All that remained for the Germans was embarrassment, and for Flora, another triumph. She had the German agent list, exact details of their Swiss operations, and, more crucially, unmasked the extent of their operations for British intelligence to act upon. Swiss authorities, confronted with the proof, leaned harder on suspected German sympathizers, disrupting the network for months. But Flora did not stop there. She moved now like a shadow, appearing in Amsterdam as a salt merchant's widow, in Berlin as a nurse from Rotterdam, her forged Dutch passport passing all scrutiny. Her greatest ambition was to obtain the German military cipher, a code so complex that even its existence was doubted by some. But every attempt met a steel wall of security. Yet no fortress is perfect. In the spring of 1916, Flora set her sights on a lower but still critical target: the naval cipher used by the German fleet to communicate across the North Sea. The opportunity came disguised as flirtation. A young German lieutenant, enchanted by her during a chance meeting at a gallery, invited her to a social tour of his ship, moored briefly in a Baltic port. During a private tour, with every officer eager to impress the dazzling foreign guest, Flora charmed her way into the radio room. Joking, asking innocent questions, laughing with the crew. She memorized the codes scribbled on the chart beside the telegraph, noting the shape, the sequence, all committed to memory with the speed of the born spy. That information proved priceless. With the German naval cipher, British intelligence began reading the messages of the Kaiser's fleet. Weeks later, as the mighty fleets clashed at the Battle of Jutland, the Admiralty possessed a secret advantage, understanding the enemy's plans in advance. It was a victory carved not by guns alone, but by the silent ingenuity of espionage and, at its heart, Flora's gifts. Year followed year. Rumors danced. Flora in Petrograd, exchanging glances and code words in candlelit rooms thick with revolution. Flora glimpsed in Madrid, hosting diplomats by the dozen. Flora quietly observed at treaty negotiations, her laughter echoing in the chambers where peace and war were decided. But as the guns of World War I fell silent, so too did reports of Flora's whereabouts. Some said she retired on the Riviera, living in Gentile exile amid gardens of roses and secrets. Others, more romantic, insisted she took new names, new causes, her battle never truly done. What is certain is this: the war's fate turned as much on charm, wit, and nerve as on courage in the trenches. And in the game of shadows, none played better than the woman called Flora. If you found this tale of secret wars and silent victories as fascinating as we do, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more astonishing stories from history's hidden corners.